You're listening to the Perth Property Show, Australia's only weekly property podcast by West Australian experts for West Australian listeners. Catch your latest episode every Monday at 7 a.m.
Rise and shine, Perth. My name's Trent Fleskins, your host of the Perth Property Show, where every week we get Perth's biggest experts into the studio to chat on their favourite property topic. Today we're talking about the First Home Buyer Super Saver Scheme. This is something that was brought in a couple of years ago. I'll get some more specifics from that very soon. But essentially it's the idea of people being able to put money into their super to then save money on tax and then take it out for the purpose of saving a deposit. So that's the crux of it. We've got our financial planning expert in the room today. That's Kieran McErlean. Kieran, thanks for coming in again.
Thanks so much for having me, Trent. Pleasure.
All right, before we have this chat, we're going to say that Kieran is a financial planner under Paul Carter Pty Ltd, trading as Provident Financial Services. He's an authorised representative of AMP Financial Planning. And we have to remind everyone that this segment is a general advice only and not intended as personal advice or recommendations. Kieran, the First Home Buyer Super Saver Scheme.
It's a fairly new piece of legislation in terms of superannuation. What's allowing people to do is the ability for them to use some tax concessions to build up a home deposit inside their super and then be able to pull that money out to use as a deposit.
I thought you couldn't touch your super until you retired. How does this even work?
Yeah, so look, there's a couple of circumstances where people can pull their money out of super.
All right. What are they?
This is one of the examples, so as new legislation, but the other is if for some reason someone is in ill health or in severe financial hardship, then there can be the ability for the trustee of the super fund to release money based on that circumstance.
Compassionate grounds?
Yes, but that's a case-by-case basis. So why would someone want to be using the superannuation investment vehicle to save a deposit for a home? When someone's contributing, so these have to be voluntary contributions. So I'm talking, your employer will pay you on your fortnightly or monthly basis their super contribution that they have to pay you.
Yep, your usual 9.5.
Yeah, usually 9.5.
This is on top of that.
That's right. This is completely different to that.
And you can't touch the usual 9.5. We're talking about everything else.
That's right.
Yep.
So it has to be a voluntary contribution by yourself. And that can be made in a couple of different ways. So you can make a personal contribution using your pre-tax money, such as a salary sacrifice.
So straight out of the pay slip, you don't see it.
That's right.
You say, boss, I want you to send it to what? The ATO, a superannuation account? Where does it go?
Yeah, so it goes to the superannuation fund.
Yep.
And that is done through your employer, as you mentioned. So you go, hey, boss, look, I'm wanting to contribute some additional money to my superannuation fund. What's the form? What's the process now for me to complete that? So that's usually done with a HR team or
but if you're in
admin
a
team.
small business or you're self-employed or something like that, what is the form? Is it as easy as just saying I want to put more money in and then you can say later I want to take it out again? Or do you have to actually disclose to the ATO or to a super fund or whoever it is? You can tell us that this is what we're doing and you have to fill the forms out.
If you're making a salary sacrifice, and then that's done through work. So what that is that's your pre-tax money going directly into your superannuation instead of going into your pocket first. On the other side, the flip side of that is if you're a business owner and you are receiving money that you're earning and then you're contributing.
Paying yourself a wage.
Yep, paying yourself a wage. Then you're making your own contributions to your super, monthly, yearly, whatever it happens to be. But you're doing that with after-tax money, then you'll be doing that as a personal contribution, and then before the end of the financial year or after, with a notice of intent, you will claim the tax deduction of the difference that anyone else would be getting if they were salary sacrificing. So what that means is if you are contributing money into super, so instead of it coming into your pocket, there's caps. So the cap at the moment under the current legislation for the concessional contribution is an amount of $25,000.
Doesn't matter how much you earn. 25 grand.
That's right. That's the maximum amount that you can put in with the concession.
And that's the idea of you're not paying tax on it and it's going into a super fund where hopefully people are investing it properly.
Well, but it's a reduced amount of tax.
Okay.
So someone's paying 15% tax on the way in with that concession. And for example, if someone was putting in any amount over the $25,000, then you wouldn't be getting the same concession. It's called what we classify as a non-concessional contribution. So look, the advantage is if someone's contributing their money, their salary sacrifice, or their after-tax income, but claiming that tax deduction at the end of the year to find the difference, then really they're only paying 15% tax on the way in.
Mm-hmm.
So then that money is there in their super working for them, and then with this new legislation that's available for first homeowners, and there are, I'll note, some points of eligibility, so it does have to be your first home. You do have to be over 18 years of age. What it means is that you can essentially pull out $30,000 from personal contributions that you've made from your superannuation account back out of super and use that to contribute for your first home.
Again, Kieran, is it a form? Is it just willy-nilly, mate, can I have my money back? How does it work?
Yes.
Do you have to see a financial planner? Do you have to call the government? How does it work?
There needs to be contact between your superannuation fund to basically let them know the intent of this money, but it is done through the ATO once you're ready to pull the money out.
Okay.
So they have their own eligibility and ticks, basically boxes that they need to tick to say, yep, okay, we see that the money has come in as personal contributions, that you're pulling it out for the purpose of purchasing a house. If you don't purchase a house within a certain time frame, then you'll either need to send the money back to the superannuation, or there's potentially additional taxes that you need to pay.
Sounds like, therefore, there's a lot less red tape than I was thinking there would be. Sounds pretty simple.
Yeah, and I think that it's deliberately designed that way to be simple. So there are timeframes around if you are to notify your superannuation fund and the ATO, how much time it will take for them to actually release the money to you, so that people can work around their finance clauses and when their settlement is actually due, when they actually have to come forward with the money or their portion of their saved amount to put towards that home. But the process itself is pretty straightforward. It is important to note that there are certain rules and legislation about the first homeowners super save scheme where the maximum amount as an individual you can pull out of your super to contribute is $30,000, and the maximum amount that you can input into your super in one financial year is $15,000.
So it's going to take you a couple of years to max this out.
That's correct.
Okay. Here I was thinking that there is a whole bunch of forms and you had to set up a new super account and all that. It sounds like we're just getting on with it, contributing our own money here and then just saying, look, I want it back and this is why, and they all seem pretty cool about it as long as you meet a few parameters.
Yeah, that's right. So I think it's most important to check those parameters first, because this money is used and intended for the first home for your deposit. So if you're to change your mind, well, then there might be a tax implication that if you do need to pull the money back out for something else, it could cost you. So my advice would always be, with anything like this, it is worth speaking to a professional, a financial advisor that you know and trust.
Do you have to speak to a financial planner about this, or can you speak to an accountant as well?
No, you don't have to speak to a financial planner. There's information online for people to do their own research between their own superannuation fund and talking to the ATO, or at least the ATO's website, in combination with your accountant. But, of course, it's very circumstantial on that person's specific personal situation and goals, and would this work well if someone's going to be saving for a home within 1 year, or is it to be used in combination with saving some money outside of super in case they're changing their mind and not going ahead with a purchase of a property within a time frame they originally thought. There's also consideration around an individual has a partner and they're saving together. Well, then they can actually use this to have a saving of $30,000 each for a combined amount of $60,000 deposit for their first home.
Far, isn't it?
Yeah, well, that starts to make a big difference. And I'll give you one example here. So you are saving $10,000 per year before tax, and we'll assume that someone's on an annual income of about $85,000. Post or compared to salary sacrificing $10,000 a year into super. Well, the after-tax savings through the super is going to be about $8,500 per year, and the after-tax savings outside of the super is about $6,441. So after a few years of building that up, I mean, there could be a difference between an individual saving inside and outside of super of $6,000.
It's literally just money in your hands and not the government's hands.
Yeah, that's right.
On top of that, your forced savings, you don't see it. It sits in a superannuation account you don't think about. And I guess you'd hope that it's making more than your deposit rate.
Yeah, that's right. So I think a lot of finance and success in finance is behavioural. And I think a lot of people that have experience in the industry or have read a lot in the area will understand that a lot of it is just simple fundamentals of investing and dollar cost averaging and taking the thought process and the motivation and the effort of saving out of the equation and having it automated. So, I mean, that is the reason that we have superannuation in the first place. The government wants people to be able to save for their retirement because
the government can't pay for it anymore.
Yeah, that's right.
Very true. Hey, a couple of extra little, these are trickier questions, I guess. One,
Sure.
with the first home buyers grant and stamp duty and whatnot, it's only for owner-occ. Is this for
Yes.
owner-occ as well as investors, or just for owner-occ?
No, this is for owner-occupied. Yep.
Not investors.
So you have to be living in the property after. Yes,
All
that's right.
Cool. And if I put my $30,000 in, right,
Mhm.
and my superannuation manager has made that $33,000 in that time, can I take $33,000 out?
Yeah, that's a good question. The specific details of the investment earnings that money has made is something that I'd have to look into a little bit further. Because also,
that'd be a nice little investment anyway, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that's right. If it's working the most tax efficiently for you inside that environment, then I mean it's money made for you that you haven't had to save for.
Yeah.
But yeah, look, there are some details about the amount of money that you can pull out that people need to know as well. So when I mentioned the concessional contributions, which are capped at $25,000 a year, which is kind of like the top level or tier of superannuation legislation, the money that you're contributing in there as concessional contributions, you can only pull a total of 85% out. So even though you have the ability to pull $30,000 out over a couple year time frame or 3 year time frame, it's important to note that not every single dollar that you've put in will be able to be pulled out in that circumstance.
Yeah, okay. That's
so there is some intricacies that need to be considered, and that's why I think it's really important that if people are looking to do a strategy like this, it's worth speaking to a professional who knows the details.
It sounds like that change up with the 85% and that extra 15, it sounds like it'd be pretty close, obviously, to the amount of money that the government would have had. So whilst you're probably, at the end of the day, taking out the same money after tax that the government would have given you if you just had it straight from your salary, at least that extra bit of money that the government's not getting is at least sitting in your super and not their account.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And that's really my understanding is that's the fundamentals of why the government has this in place. Is it's to give people the opportunity to save for a deposit in the most tax effective way they can. And the government is seeing that if it is used for the purpose of someone trying to get into their first home, then they're willing to give those tax concessions.
Yeah. And if the leftovers are still sitting in a superannuation account, that's pension they don't have to pay down the track.
That's exactly right. So one of not just Australia, but many nations' biggest problem is the ageing demographic and the constraints that age pension, Centrelink entitlements, for example, play on the total economy and the funds that the government have to support their elderly through their retirement, because people not only living longer, but it's becoming, the standard of living is obviously becoming more expensive too. So it's in the government's best interest that people are looking after themselves and their financial future in their retirement, because it's less that they have to pay for.
Very true. It sounds like a really worthwhile piece of legislation, especially for those who struggle to save but have the drive and the ambition to do so. They recognise that money isn't their top thing, but they can really appreciate the structure and make the most of that, to know that when they're ready to meet their goals, they've got the money in the back end, sitting away in a very private account, protected account, that allows them to then go ahead and make that first purchase.
Yep, that's exactly how I see it too. It's if someone has a goal and an objective of acquiring a house and they're wanting to save a deposit of X, then the government has given a vehicle for people to do that in a more tax-effective way.
And no red tape. Sounds fantastic. How surprising.
Yes, yeah, there's sometimes it does go in the favour of the first homeowner or the Australian resident when it comes to super and government and saving schemes.
Government 100, Australian residents 1. Kieran, thank you very much for your time. We'll have you in again soon.
No problems. Thank you for having me, Trent.
Okay, Suburb Spotlight time now. We are talking about the city of Joondalup suburb being Kingsley. Fantastic access to the freeway, train stations, bit of a shopping hub there as well, and some new suburbs around there bringing a bit of vibe into the area. A bit of subdivision opportunity in a very specific area, and we're here to talk about all those opportunities with the only man I want to talk to, and that is James Kennedy from Ray White. You are the number one agent in Kingsley. Thanks for coming in.
Yeah, thanks, Trent. Thanks for having me.
James, why is Kingsley your suburb? Why do you love the area? Why aren't you in 3 or 4 other suburbs? You seem to really be a passionate person who is in and amongst Kingsley and have most of your listings, they're Kingsley.
Yeah, that's correct, Trent. I moved into Kingsley with my family in 1986, so I went to the local Creaney Primary School and then on to Woodvale High. So, yeah, I mean, I've lived and owned
You're born
property.
and bred.
Yeah, pretty much so.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I've lived and owned property in Kingsley for about 33 years now. So, yeah, look, it's a fantastic suburb, great family suburb. It's so central now. It's 8 or 9 minutes down to the beach, to Hepburn Avenue down to the marina. You've got freeway access on both sides. Whitford's on one side and Greenwood train station. So, yeah, really good access to train stations as well. If you jump in the car, which I've just jumped in the car now from an appointment in Kingsley, bearing peak hour traffic, you're in the city in 12 or 13 minutes. So, really great location.
Accessible, but I think at that accessible price as well. That's the point. Big blocks, family houses. I guess the answer to my next question is probably families, but who mainly lives in Kingsley?
Good question, Trent. All type of families. I was only doing an appraisal yesterday to a gentleman who was 92 years old, been living there for 20 years. He's just lost his wife a couple of years ago, but not ready to move out of the area because he's just used to the area and he can duck down to local shops, and there's a medical centre behind the Kingsley shops which he goes to, ranging from elderly down to first home buyers. Property I sold last week was a first home buyers just wanting to get into the area. They didn't want to be on the other side of Wanneroo Road through your newer suburbs, your Darch, Madleys, Hockings. They wanted to get into a well-established suburb where they could have a 10 or 15-year plan and bring up their kids and bring them to the local primary schools, which there's really good ones. So
tell me about these primary schools. It seems like this suburb is perfectly set up for that 30s, early 40s couple who have probably made their first family investment, that step up to their second home a lot of the time with the kids. The kids are going down to the local primary school. Mum's taking the train into work. Dad's got work locally. Is that a good sum up of a lot of your clients?
It is, Trent. I mean, look, it's just such a blue chip suburb. You're right, it's got 4 primary schools. You've got Dalmain, Halladon, Creaney, which I went to, and Goolal. There's also Montessori Primary School as well, which is a little hidden primary school over the back there.
They're getting more popular over time as well.
They are. So, yeah, look, and they're all great primary schools, so that's a big attraction. Of course, Kingsley doesn't have a high school, so it's got a very low crime rate. I've sold about half a dozen properties to police officers over the years, and the reason why they want to get into the area is because very, very low crime. So you've got Woodvale High School on one side, which I went to, and then you've got Greenwood on the south side. So high schools either side, but no high school in Kingsley, which I think is a good thing, and it just makes for a great family suburb.
Tell me about what it's going to cost me to get in to Kingsley. Obviously, it's not the cheapest suburb around town, and for a reason. I think because you've got more established families who can afford that more established lifestyle, bigger blocks, big houses. Do you have accessible options in the 400s, or are we really talking the 500s, 600s, 700s in Kingsley?
No, look, I mean, definitely you can get some property in the 400s. Look, traditionally, you've got your sort of 3 levels. Your entry point is your villas or your duplexes, which start at high 3s, low 4s, and then you're sort of pushing up to your 3x1s that are starting around the mid 400s, and that's a full-size block. So that's your 680 to 700, which is average for Kingsley. High 4s up to 5s. And then once you hit into the mid 5s, you're getting your 4x2s between the 500 to 700,000, and peaking out about 700 for a nice renovated 4.2. But in saying that, as we go across the other side of Kingsley towards Lake Goolal and high up on the hills overlooking the lake, they're $1 million properties. So you've got a big array of price range there.
You touched on the word renovation. Now, I would have thought, given the vintage of this suburb, we're a 40-year-old suburb?
Yeah, late 70s at a little pocket.
Most of these places need a lick of paint and a new kitchen and bathroom, don't they?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's lots of renos going
They're
along.
Fantastically built, strong double brick homes. I suspect there's no fibro homes in Kingsley. They need a renovation, right? And this is where a lot of opportunity for some skilled people to come in and create their own future and dream. For
the tradesmen, that they can come in and buy a 4x2 double brick and tile for around that mid 500s. They can, it's got good bones, the 2 or 3 living areas, double lock-up garage, And as I said, on a 680, 700 block, they can come in and buy that, and then slowly add their stamp to it and do their upgrades, and knowing that they've got a good solid home in a great area. So,
a couple of things that I know about Kingsley: you got a great footy team on the amateur side. I hear a lot about it, and secondly, there's a Facebook page that seems to be buzzing more than most around Perth. What's going on? Is it a big community vibe in Kingsley? Is it quite tightly held?
Yeah, you're right, Trent. Kingsley's a very community-based suburb, and that's part of the reason why I love the area, and I think buyers come to the area. Yeah, so Kingsley, it's just gone into this year into an A-grade amateurs footy club, and it's a great club. I think they've got an ex-Docker, Fremantle Docker, Anthony Grover, coaching them now. So yeah, great football club. Kingsley Cricket Club as well, which is doing very well in the summer. Yeah,
I guess you're finding all these things out from the community Facebook page and.
Yeah, for sure. And my Kingsley Life page, I've got about 2,500 followers now. We just do Kingsley. We don't go outside Kingsley, and we like to promote everything that's happening in Kingsley, the local trade services. We have a tab that if you're an electrician or a plumber or a hairdresser and you want to promote your business on my page, you can do that, and then people can just go on there and click and find a local person to do the job.
That's a really good idea, just keeping it local.
Yeah, well, Kingsley's a massive suburb, Trent. It's got 4,500 homes, so there's lots of people that live in Kingsley. I think we're up to about 13,000 residents, and we just like to keep it local. And
Kingsley is one of the least affected suburbs, I think, by the City of Joondalup changes. However, they're also I think there's been some NIMBYism, some pushback on the subdivision zoning changes that have come back in the last couple of years. What's going on in terms of the mindset of locals in Kingsley? Do they want renewal? Do they see it as a valuable thing? It's a pretty small pocket that the City of Joondalup has zoned for subdivision. Obviously, I'm not seeing a massive amount of renewal and change happening in there yet. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, Trent, look, there is a pocket along the northern corridor from the Whitfords train station all the way down to the drive-ins, and that's another thing we haven't mentioned. Kingsley's got the only drive-ins left in Perth, and you get your Tight Ass Tuesday, which is, I think, $20 a car, and there's a line from the drive-ins right down Goolal Drive, and that happens every Tuesday. But yeah, it's still open 7 days a week with a couple of movies. But yeah, you've got your R40 pocket along that corridor. There's about 400 or 500 homes. There is a strong pocket down near the Whitfords train station that's starting to get redeveloped. There's been 7 apartments that's just been built on one block. There are neighbours that have protested and are not happy with the change, but this change has been happening or in the pipeline for the last 10 years, which they've known about, and it's finally come through. And look, I think it's a good thing for the area.
Don't you think it gives your 90-year-old client that opportunity to, within his price range, stay in Kingsley and have less of a maintenance issue and be close to amenities? That's what I see a benefit of these strategic pocket rezonings that are happening in these areas. It gives the 90-year-old fella an option to still have his own home and stay in Kingsley. Otherwise, there's no other place he could have gone.
Yeah, correct, Trent. That's exactly right. People that have, they've had their family there. They've grown. The kids have left. Now they've got a 700 block 4x2 that they want to downsize. They don't want to do the gardens anymore, and they want to stay in the area. So I've had a few clients over the past 12 months that have sold and have bought these newer homes, 3x2 double lock up garages, on a corner block in a group of 3 or a duplex. And you're right; they want to stay in the area and benefit from what they know Kingsley has to offer.
What are these things selling for? These new products, these apartments, and these triplex style villas. Do you have any data as to what it might cost to get into these?
Look, Trent, you're looking probably high 400s for a 3x2 villa on a triplex block. As I said, there's high 4s, low 5s. There's been a few sales recent. There's probably about 10 or 12 under construction at the moment in the area.
So you might need a bit more data to see exactly how the market's treating those.
Yeah, true. And there's been a lot of several houses that have been knocked over, and there's a little bit of land available as well in Kingsley at the moment. So people are either knocking down their houses and just selling the blocks only, because they're finding that there's maybe a little bit more profit in doing that than doing the development. So.
Yeah, okay. Giving people optionality in a brownfield suburb to renew and build their own dream home on maybe 400 square metres or 350.
Yeah, depending on the size of the block, you can either duplex it or triplex it. So there's options there for them, which is great.
Where do you see Kingsley moving in the next 10 to 15 years as a suburb, as a culture, do you think it will retain that family vibe, or do you think as families start to move into downsizes, like I view maybe a Warwick right now, you might see more people calling for more housing options and downsizing options?
Yeah, look, Trent, I think Kingsley will always be a family suburb. It always has been since I've been in the area for 30 odd years. You know, it's got great community feel, and it's got great sporting clubs and cricket clubs, and the ones that we touched across, the footy, the soccer, the cricket. It has a local Christmas carols every Christmas down at the Kingsley Oval, with the fireworks, and the Woodvale High School comes and does their orchestra, and which I sponsor, which is great. So I think it'll always be that family suburb, and there's always going to be change, and there's always going to be developments popping up and diverse of people coming in the area and housing. But I think it'll always be true to its name, and it'll always stay a great family suburb.
Give me a median house price.
Kingsley medium house price at the moment is about $560,000.
All right. If you had $560,000 in your pocket, James Kennedy, what would you do with that in Kingsley?
Oh, look, I'd do probably what I did do, and back 14, 15 years ago when I did buy my first home in Kingsley, when I moved out of Mum and Dad's house, of course, in Kingsley, I'd probably buy a good 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom, nice, couple living areas, your double lock-up garage. You get a pool at the back, it's a bonus, in a nice family street that you can bring up your kids and enjoy what Kingsley has to offer. Renovation
capacity, or for that price, are you looking for something that's ready to go?
Oh, look, mid-fives at the moment, you can get a nice 4x2 with maybe a kitchen's done up, or the 2 bathrooms and the kitchen needs to be done up. Got some nice flooring and reverse cycle throughout. But look, you can get, long as you've got a nice big 4x2 or a home that you can add your touch to and enjoy the lifestyle that it has to offer, then I don't think you can go wrong.
Bonus question that's come up in my head right now. We're in August 2019. Are we in a buyer's market or a seller's market in Kingsley right now, or is it quite balanced?
Look, good question, Trent. The real estate market, and in Kingsley especially, it's sort of like the shares. 1 month it's up, the next month it's down, and the buyers move from suburb to suburb. So right here, right now, we're getting really good results for properties, and then next month when everyone decides to sell in spring, it might become a little bit lesser. So look, it can be up and down, but look, in saying that, you can get a really good house in Kingsley for mid-fives, and I don't think there's a better time to buy in the area. I think if I'm standing here talking to you in 2 or 3 years' time, I think that mid-fives medium house price will definitely be more. So yeah, great time to buy.
Okay. James, thanks very much for coming in. Appreciate it. Let's have you in again. Talk about Kingsley when we're seeing those increases, and we'll have maybe a couple more championship trophies on the wall for the footy clubs.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Trent.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Perth Property Show. If you've only just joined the conversation, you can catch up by heading over to our website, perthpropertyshow.com.au, subscribing to the podcast, or joining our Facebook page. Don't forget to tune in next Monday at 7 a.m. for more expert insights, local analysis, and suburb spotlights. Happy hunting!